the war of narratives. Almost the entire American leftist and the European media has followed Pakistan's narrative of a grand air victory, hook, line and sinker. Hook, line and sinker. You know, most of it was based on a very slick PowerPoint presentation. No actual battle. The Pakistani Air Force is much better at PowerPoint presentations than, unfortunately, our External Affairs Ministry mandarins were, right? And Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb, their equivalent of the Deputy Chief of Air Staff Operations on our side, you know, he gave that presentation immediately on the 8th morning. And it was a very slick PowerPoint presentation which gave the, you know, the impression of a massive air circus taking place over the western borders of India and Pakistan. He said about, 70 to 80 aircraft rose from the Indian side and about 40 aircraft rose to, combat this air armada, which was in 4 blocks, heading towards Pakistan from Kashmir down to Kutch. And how the Pakistani airwacs made a valiant, near the Afghan border, they started making a valiant track. The Saabs and the Chinese airborne early warning aircraft, how they picked up our, Indian aircraft, and how the Chinese J-10Cs armed with the PL-15 were able to get the better of this thing. He spoke, he used very sexy Western jargon, multi-domain operation, center of gravity, etc. Made a big impression on the civilian media, big impression on the civilian media, which, were looking at him, Pakistani girls, starry-eyed and all that. He mentioned that the Chinese had given them a library of the entire electronic signatures of each and every Indian Air Force jet fighter or aircraft, and they had this library with them, so they could identify where the Rafales were coming, where the Sukhois were coming, where the MiG-29s were coming, and the Rafales, he claimed, were the center of gravity. Spare us the bullshit. Did he show even, any air warfare specialist could have picked hundreds of holes in that ridiculous narrative. Ridiculous, self-serving, propagandistic bombast, bakwas, right? Like I said, any military or air power professional could spot glaring holes in the Aurangzeb narrative, in the ridiculous fairy tale that was spun by Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb of the Pakistani Air Headquarters, their Air Ops, right? He gave us to understand that China had given them a library of the electronic signatures of each and every Indian jet fighter and aircraft that has ever flown in the Northern Theatre, right? What this gentleman forgot to tell us was, or he forgot totally to show us, the real proof of a kill, air-to-air kill, when the DASI, Directorate of Air Staff Inspection carries out, analysis of how air battles have gone, how air exercises have gone. They show the radar tracks. The radar acquiring a target, firing a missile, and that blip going off. Not one radar track was shown. Just that we fired, this is the 2 opposing circuses of aircraft, the greatest air battle in the world, 120 aircraft, both from India and Pakistan, sometimes exaggerated to 140 aircraft. They fought and Pakistan won an epic victory, air victory. Bullshit. Give us another one. Show us the radar tracks. Not one has been shown. And apropos this wonderful library of electronic signatures of each and every aircraft, Indian jet fighters, which China is supposed to have given to you, I hope you know and I hope the Chinese know, that routinely the Indian aircraft, the Indian fighters, when they are going in for such operations, we also use decoy aircraft ahead of us. Decoy aircraft like the Lakshya, pilotless target aircraft, which we use for target practice, speed of Mach 0.7 Mach, can fly anything from 50 meters to almost up to 9 kilometers up, and it has the electronic payload to replicate the electronic signatures of the much larger Su-30 Rafales and the MiG-29s, etc. It can replicate the electronic signatures of any of our aircraft, right? And with these, we were able to fool them. So AVM Aurangzeb can now start looking at whether he shot down any pilotless target aircraft, or was he able to achieve anything at all in that great air circus battle that he showed to the global media. What really didn't help was that when he was strutting around impressing the girls in the media audience and impressing them with his very slick PowerPoint projection, he won the war on the PowerPoint. I'm sorry, he lost the war on the ground badly, right? Our unfortunate initial decision was to field our foreign secretary, a very fine man, a very erudite scholar, a very good bureaucrat, but who is not a military specialist, who is not an air warrior, who does not, it is not his, domain. It is not his domain of expertise to talk about air battles, really. So he was helped by two girls who were also not from the operational directorates. Those who, plan the operation, execute the operation, they are the best people to explain that operation. So unfortunately, they didn't even have a PowerPoint. They were holding up, photographs and trying to point them down. Half of them were not seen. I mean, there were shortcomings. There were obvious shortcomings. It was not a professional briefing by a military professional. It was by a very qualified bureaucrat who is, I would say, the last word in diplomacy, statecraft, etc. But air battles were not really his domain expertise. So initially, by comparison, our briefing suffered in relation to the Pakistani briefing by their Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb from his Directorate of Military Operations, Pakistan Directorate of Air Operations, not military operations, air operations. There is another fact that we must remember. Any air force, the standard practice is, before it attacks some selected targets, it first carries out SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. It attacks the enemy radars, it attacks the enemy anti-aircraft surface-to-air missiles, batteries, etc., command and control centers, tears holes in the sky, which it then exploits to attack the selected targets that it has chosen, military or in this case terrorist targets. India was somehow very loath to escalate, and we thought that we would start the operation only by attacking terrorist targets and thereby give Pakistan an off-ramp in which to back off even now. This I don't think was a very wise decision, because it needlessly constrained the Indian Air Force. It put constraints on our initial operations, which we could have done without. But be that as it may, we fired 24 cruise missiles, BrahMos, as well as the Spice cruise missiles from our Rafales, BrahMos from our Su-30s, and each and every one of them hit their target. Each and every one of them hit their targets, and all these baloney claims by Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb of a great circus, World War I type, Reichsthofen style circus, very impressive it sounds, Red Knight, Red Baron, Bishop, etc., etc. That is World War I era. We are into well beyond the post-Cold War timings. So I think Air Marshal Aurangzeb should grow up a little, stop reading less war comics and concentrate more on his profession, right? Where his Air Force has taken the drubbing of a lifetime. We are not saying it. Foreign military experts, respected domain experts like Tom Cooper, like John Spencer, have all come out and said it is a decisive victory of the Indian Air Force, right? They were able to hit every target that they attempted, and the whole, whole Pakistani balloon was punctured badly on 8th, 9th and 10th of May. 8th of May, they were waxing eloquent on the air circus and 4 Indian blocks of aircraft and so many, some about 80, 70, 80, 100 Indian aircraft versus 40 Pakistani aircraft. I mean, all those very romantic fairy tales that he was telling, they don't stand up to scrutiny one bit. And the next day, they got clobbered. Next day, Pakistan retaliated by escalating horizontally and vertically. How? They fired 400 Turkish and Chinese drones. They were trying to probe our air defenses. They were trying to pick up our frequencies, pinpoint our locations for subsequent attack by their drones. Second day, they launched the loitering munitions. They launched their drones and with some of their cruise missiles. Each and every one of them got shot down. I hope you know that in this particular engagement, the Indian Air Force, the Indian Air Defense, they have shot down over 600 Chinese and Turkish Pakistani drones. 600 of them have been shot out of the bloody skies. Hardly the interception range was over 90%. Interception, percentages were beyond 90%. Just a few odd balls here and there got through. 10th was the crucial day. 10th was the crucial day, and Pakistan launched Shaheen-1 tactical ballistic missiles on the 10th. Not one, but I suppose a fair number not disclosed. Now this is the Chinese M9 originally. It's a variant of the Chinese M9 missile, range of 700 kilometers, warhead payload of 750 kilograms. This can carry both conventional and nuclear warheads. The Western Command has said that China also fired the A-100 multi-barrel rocket launchers on the line of control and elsewhere. And this is the equivalent of our Smerch. And India retaliated with the Smerch and blasted the daylights out of these. They also launched the Fateh-1, 2. It is being said these are MLRSs. Initially, it was being claimed that these were Fateh missiles, but the Fateh missile, the missiles, ballistic missiles, have now been identified as Shaheen-1. As Shaheen-1, right? Now, like I said, this carries both a conventional and can carry a nuclear payload. And these were aimed at Delhi. One of them was aimed at the Golden Temple, for which Pakistani ISI had very dutifully made the propaganda line that India is firing missiles at its own Golden Temple. Can you hear of a more ridiculous claim than that? Matlab, it is not even laughable, right? And then the Pakistani machinations came to light when they were trying to fire at the Golden Temple. Each and every one of them got shot to smithereens. This Shaheen-1 was intercepted by a kinetic shot by the S-400. And over Chandigarh, you could see the shower of meteorites falling down as this Shaheen-1 was blasted out of the skies. And quite obviously, no Indian planner could wait to see whether these missiles were carrying conventional or nuclear warheads. So we hit the Chagai Hills, we have hit the Kirana Hills, right? The nuclear storage sites, and which the entrance and the exits have been blocked. And Pakistan realized that all the missile-based nuclear weapons could not get through because we had the S-400s. To back up the S-400s, we had the Prithvi PAD, Point Air Defense System, designed to blow out ballistic missiles. So Pakistan's tissue of lies has been exposed. When Pakistan retaliated, India hit 11 out of 12 Pakistani air bases. Once again, we used the pilotless target aircraft, the dummy aircraft, to make the Chinese air defense radars open up. When they opened up, these were hit by the Harop kamikaze suicide drones, which the Israelis have supplied to us. And they again switched them off, moved their radars, moved their HQ-9 and HQ-16 Chinese surface-to-air missile batteries, a lot of them, and we sent the pilotless aircraft again with the electronic signatures which the Chinese have so thoughtfully given to the Pakistanis of every single jet they claim of the Indian Air Force. So they opened up again, and this time, of course, we destroyed 4 radars. We hit the HQ batteries, we hit the command and control nodes, we hit their air bases, we hit their nuclear weapon storage sites, and the people in Rawalpindi and Islamabad might as well buy dosimeters and iodine tablets to prevent throat cancer. So where do we go from here? Frankly, in hindsight, we let Pakistan off the hook. I think we were too kind in giving it a pause in operations. I'm sure it will go running to China to try and make up its losses, running to Turkey to try and make up its losses as fast as possible and free of cost. And whatever $2 billion it has got from the IMF will all go to China and Turkey to buy more missiles, buy more drones, etc., etc. And the task is crystal clear for us. Thank God we have not called off Operation Sindoor. We've only paused it. We need to utilize this pause to increase our defense budget to 2.5 to 3% of our GDP. Somehow we've been only keen to economize on defense. I think this economy can be very costly on the battlefield. We need to open our coffers now, and at least we have to be ahead, technologically ahead. Thank God for our indigenous scientists who have enabled us to do that. But we have to have overmatching capabilities with Pakistan at least, if not both China and Pakistan. And for that, if we have to spend money, we have to spend money. Please open your purse strings and let it flow. We can't afford this, penny pinching any longer. Number one. Number two, I think it's about time that we concluded the deal. The Russians have been very generous. They have offered us a deal of about 36 to 42 of the Su-57s. I think now we have very carefully watched who has done what by us during this conflict. And I think the two friends who come closest are Israel, Russia, and France, not necessarily in that order. Unfortunately, the French refused to share the source codes of the Rafale. Otherwise, we could have fitted our Astra BVR missiles, our BrahMos cruise missiles on the Rafales. And they would have done a far better job than they have now. The Russians share their source codes, they share everything. So do the Israelis. So I think we have now seen who is our friend and who is lukewarm and who is not. So we must, I think, quickly make up, because not only do we have to take care of Pakistan, we also have to take care of China. We also have to take care of China. So the Su-57s are a must. We must get them at the earliest. If we still want to go in for the Rafales, we must speed up that. But we must tell France that they'll have to share source codes if they want to sell their Rafales to us. right? We must quickly go in for additional A-tag medium artillery guns. We must get ready, if necessary, for a fight to the finish. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.